Hello. So this is our first video on in Algebra 1 on the order of operations, and this is the exact same PowerPoint that you saw in class and took notes over, or if you are not in class, can take notes over at home so that you don't miss anything if you're not in school that day. But this is on the order of operations, and to demonstrate why we need an order of operations, let's take a look at this first problem. 12 minus 8 plus 2. Same thing, but let's suppose we give it to two different people, and those two different people do all the arithmetic right. The first person decides to take 12 minus 8 first, which is 4, and then 4 plus 2 is 6. And so the first person gets an answer of 6. The second person decides, instead of taking 12 minus 8, he's going to go 8 plus 2. And so the 12 would not change, but the 8 plus 2 we know is 10. 12 minus 10 is 2. And so that person gets the answer of 2. Obviously, we can't have two answers that are different when we're doing the same problem. We want to be consistent. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the order of operations. It so happens that on this particular problem, the correct answer is this one here. A lot of people think we add before we subtract, and that's not necessarily the case. We add and subtract together, going from left to right. And so we're going to go through that, and this is something that should be in your notes right now. The order of operations should be R, parentheses first. So anytime we see parentheses or brackets or parentheses within parentheses, we're going to do those first. After we get done with all the parentheses, then we do all the exponents, anything raised to a power. Once we get done with all the powers or all the exponents, we're going to multiply them together. Again, this is important, from left to right. And so it's not necessarily multiply first and then divide. It can be, but we're always going to work from left to right. Another thing to remember here is anytime we see a fraction, that means to divide. It's the same thing. You take the top number, or the numerator, divided by the bottom number, which is the denominator. Then, when we get through multiplying and dividing, we're going to add and subtract. And again, it's important to remember, it's from left to right. Another thing that confuses a lot of people is that there are understood parentheses whenever we see a fraction. So if we see a fraction that's 2 plus 3 divided by 5, we would have to take the 2 plus 3 first, because there are understood parentheses around that numerator. So let's take a look at these order of operations and see how they apply to specific situations. Here's the first problem, and you should have these in your notes. And we're going to go through and just apply the order of operations. We're going to do all of the different things in this problem in a specific order. You can see there aren't any parentheses, so we don't have to worry about that. Once we decide their parentheses are not there, we're going to do all of the exponents, and we have exponents right there, 6 squared. So it's going to be 4 plus 6 squared is 36 minus 5 times 2. And so we've done all the exponents. Now we're going to add or multiply and divide, and you can see here we are multiplying 5 times 2. So the 4 plus the 36 does not change, minus 5 times 2 is 10. And so we have done all of our multiplying and dividing. Now we're going to add and subtract, but again, it's from left to right. So the first thing we're going to do is take 4 plus 36, which is 40, and 40 minus 10 is 30. And so the correct answer we have is 30 for this first problem. Second problem, simplify this expression. Now we do have some parentheses. So we have to do everything in the parentheses here before we worry about the 12 minus 5. So I'm just going to copy down 12 minus 5 first. That's not going to change. But in my parentheses, I can either subtract or I can take 2 squared. So within the parentheses, I'm going to follow the order of operations. And so because exponents go before subtracting, I'm going to take 6 minus whatever 2 squared is, which is 4. And I'm going to do that first before I subtract. I'm still not done with the parentheses. I still have 6 minus 4, so that means the 12 minus 5 doesn't change. And 6 minus 4 is 2. So now I'm done with the parentheses. So I could replace this parentheses around the 2 with a point or a dot right here to designate that I'm multiplying, or I can just leave it like this. Whenever we have a number right next to a set of parentheses, that means to multiply. So there aren't any exponents here either. So now I'm going to multiply or divide. And so I would take 12 minus 5 times 2. And 5 times 2 is 10. And so that's my multiplying. Then I would do my last step, 12 minus 10, which is 2. And so my final answer here is 2. Take a look at this next one, number 3. And again, all of these examples should be in your notes. So here is a situation where there are some understood parentheses. We really don't have to worry about the top because there's only one number on the top. But take a look down here. We have some understood parentheses in the denominator of this fraction, which means we have to do everything down here first. So I'm going to take 10 minus, and I have this fraction, 6 is on top, but down here in these parentheses, I have 3 squared minus 7. So I'm going to start by taking the 3 squared, which is 9, minus the 7, plus 4. Still not finished down here, so nothing else will change until I am. 9 minus 7 is 2, plus the 4. So now I'm done with the parentheses. I also do not have any exponents here, so I'm going to multiply or divide. This is a fraction here, and so I'm going to divide 6 divided by 2. So we have 10 minus 6 divided by 2 is 3 plus 4. If I continue with the order of operations, the next thing is the adding and subtracting, but it's going to be from left to right. And so I'm going to actually go 10 minus 3 first, which is 7, plus 4, and 7 plus 4 is 11. And so my final answer here is 11. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Now here we have parentheses within parentheses. So when I follow the order of operations, I'm going to have to do whatever's in these parentheses first, and I'm going to work inside out. So I would do the 6 minus the n. Once I get that, I would do the brackets, and then I would complete it with everything else. But before we do that, they're throwing something else different in here at us, and they're going to say we want to evaluate this when n is 2. So that means every time I see an n, I'm going to replace that n with the number 2. And so I'm going to rewrite it so it looks like this. We have 10 plus n, but this n is 2. Then I have the brackets, 10 minus n, which is 2, and then the parentheses, 6 minus 2. And I'm going to close the parentheses and the brackets. So now I'm just going to follow the order of operations. And again, I'm going to go 6 minus 2 first, and everything else will stay the same. 10 plus 2, and then 10 minus 2, but in the parentheses, 6 minus 2 is 4. So now I'm done with those parentheses. I can move on to these brackets, and I'm either going to go 10 minus 2 next, or 2 times 4. And because multiplying goes before subtracting, I'm going to go 2 times 4. Everything else will stay the same. 10 plus 2, and then 10 minus 2 times 4 is 8. And now I can close out those brackets. 10 plus 2, and then in the brackets, 10 minus 8 is 2. Okay, so at this point, I'm done with the parentheses, I'm done with the brackets, and I don't have any exponents to worry about, so I'm going to go on to multiplying and dividing, and I have some multiplying right here. So it's going to be 10 plus 2 times 2 is 4, and 10 plus 4 is 14. And so my final answer is 14. There you have it. Now you have your homework assignment to work on, and we'll be checking this homework assignment and making corrections on it tomorrow in class. Have a good night.